How you doing, Missy?
I'm doing great, Britt. Thanks for having me. I'm looking
That
forward to it. You're a lot of fun to talk to on the phone.
yes, we've been talking and just talking about being fans of music and just like next level fans of music. And
Yes.
yeah, and you were the Quiet Riot fan club leader since you were 16 in 1979.
Yes. Well, that's when I first saw them, but I did become shortly after I started doing it in an unofficial capacity when Kevin was on his own and Randy had left for Ozzy and he was starting from square one. So that's where I came in. I was a little bit younger than most of the fans that were watching the Quiet Riot Randy years. I came in at the tail end and got to see Randy several shows before he left. So most of my time was with Dubrow and then Quiet Riot with Mental Health.
Wow. And what I like about you is you really, and I genuinely know that from our conversations, it wasn't about the lifestyle, the parties. You just genuinely, like so many people, love the music.
That's exactly what it was. When I first heard them, I mean, to be fair, it was my first live concert with a band 3 feet in front of my face. And that was Kevin and Rudy and Drew Forsythe and Randy. And that was
Wow.
my first experience. And when you're 16 years old, that makes a huge impression on you. And I knew that I wanted to be going to their concerts, but it's interesting because I actually was a huge fan of Queen and
Yeah.
Aerosmith. And I joined both of their fan clubs back in the day. When fan clubs were all you had. And
Yeah.
Queen's fan club impressed me so much. They had a quarterly little booklet with a letter written for the fans by each member of the band. And then the fan club president, who I think was named Jackie. And I just felt like it was such quality and I looked forward to it. And then I got Aerosmith's stuff and it was complete junk.
Okay.
It was, I mean, I love the band, still do, but the necklace they give you was like punched out of metal and it still had shavings on it. And it was just like, I like quality. So when I started listening to Dubrow and Quiet Riot, I thought, I want to do a quality fan club. So that's kind of how I felt about fan clubs. I love that feeling of the connection with the one person and bringing stuff to fans that, can't see them on the internet. That wasn't a thing back then.
And don't you think friendships are forged through the love of a band? Like there's so many friendships you make of loving a band and connecting over that community.
It is, and I would answer a lot of the letters, and it got a little difficult near the end when they blew up once the album started climbing the charts. But I still had some friends. I had one woman from Michigan. I say woman, but she was pretty young. She flew out and stayed with me and my then husband, and she made us dinner. And I couldn't cook. I mean, my idea of cooking was popcorn and hot dogs. And she made us a meal and she stayed for the weekend and I showed her all kinds of Quiet Riot stuff. So that was really fun. I met a lot of different fans. Some came in town, some were just by letters and some by phone.
Wow. Can you tell me about that journey? You had told me, I don't know why I thought it was so cool going to that first Quiet Riot show and how you got there and about the date, just the magic of that night that changed the trajectory of your life.
Well, at that time, there was no rock and roll clubs in the Valley. Everything pretty much was, the Valley did, everything's in Hollywood. And I
Right.
was a little too young to go to Hollywood. No car, no transportation. But my best friend was a year older than me, and she had a job at the Valley Northridge Water Slide. And so
Whoa.
I would go down there in the summer, and I would just look at all the tan lifeguards, and then get on the slide. And there was my afternoon every day in the summer. And next door was a disco, which of course, boo. It
Disco
was called
sucks.
Star.
Yeah.
Yeah, disco sucks. It's called the Star Baby, and we would. Laura had a moped to go to and from her job, and I'd
This is
hop on the back,
so
and,
good.
and we would go home. But we said, you know what we should do? We should just drive right there in front of the entrance where the bouncers were, and just yell as loud as we can, "Disco sucks!" So we did. So we would do that and we would just get all giddy and then we'd sing Aerosmith songs, all the way home, just remembering every song in the road, every word without the music around. We would just sing them all the way home on the moped. Well, one night I was at the water slide and there was flyers everywhere. And that apparently Star Baby wanted to have a rock and roll night, all ages allowed. And so I said, God, we got to get in there. And my friend Laura said, do you think they're going to realize we're the girls that yell disco sucks whenever we draw? I go, well, let's hope they don't. And, we put on all our kind of like disco skirts, like the cherry red spandex tops and a black wraparound. And we got all, poofed up. And I was 16, she was 17. And we went to the Star Baby and got on in. And I was, so it's kind of a small little dumpy place. And it had a little corner stage, not very big. And we just kind of stood around and waited for whatever this band was going to come on. Now, it was years later I realized that the flyers they were putting out there said it was Quiet Riot, but I didn't know who they were. So I thought they were calling this event a Quiet Riot.
That makes sense. You have so many when you're a kid, you're getting your concept around concerts and things. There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you have no idea. So I thought that was the name of the event they were putting on. Mm-hmm. Clueless, it was the name of the band. So all of a sudden they said, ladies and gentlemen, the lights got dim. They said, it's Quiet Riot. And then I realized, oh, it's the band. So they come on and it's dark. And I can see, and again, didn't know the names at the time, but Kevin was doing this to his hair, kind of getting ready and everything. Got this microphone stand all striped. And I see a little tiny guy in the right corner with this blonde hair, poking that guitar, tuning it up super loud. And then I thought there was a woman coming on, and I thought that was the bass player in this yellow spandex outfit, long black hair. And I'm like, oh God, this is interesting. And then boom, the lights came on and, the lights hit our face. And of course, immediately your face gets warmed with that light right in your face. And then I realized that was a man. It was Rudy Sarzo with his chest, but he was gorgeous mane of hair. And then the stage is a little high, so I couldn't see the drummer so much, but it was Drew Forsythe, and he's down there, playing. Kevin grabs his microphone, and he's running back and forth on this tiny stage, and I'm just like, it was just like so much fun. It was so cool, and Randy was playing, and I was just instantly in love. This was just like the greatest thing I've ever experienced. And about 10 minutes go by, and all of a sudden there's stop and chatter, and Kevin starts talking to Randy, and then he says, folks, we have to cut it short. He says, Randy blew out the monitor. And it was like, oh, so they couldn't finish their set. So it's just like, well, first of all, I wasn't having any of that. So yeah. I had to know who these guys were. And they did mingle around in the audience afterwards. It wasn't a real big crowd because this was, a discotheque. So it was a small crowd. And I saw Randy, and I'm 5'9", and Randy's really petite. And I walked up behind him without him knowing. And I'm saying to my girlfriends, my God, my wrist is wider than him because he's so tiny. And they're like, don't get so close, man. You're right behind him. And then a guy walked by and smacked Randy's arm, and his drink spilled all over my skirt. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm just like, that's okay. It was so cool. So the next morning we called Star Baby and we drilled them. Who are these guys? Where are they? And the guy didn't know a whole lot. He said, look, all I know is they play in Hollywood. They play at the Starwood a lot. And he said it was Rudy Rhodes and Randy Sarzo. And he didn't know the names, but we had a lead, and Hollywood was where we're going to go next. And that was the beginning of the love affair of the band. August 30th, 1979.
Wow. Oh my God. It's so magic. I mean, we have Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, and Randy Rhodes that you're just like, you saw our generation's Hendrix and it blowing up a monitor. It's just incredible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I had no idea. I have no idea how huge he would be.
Yeah. And I think that Quiet Riot, I saw them at that Madison Square Garden show where they opened for Iron Maiden. But when after the bomb went off, I call it the Quiet Riot bomb. Because when Metal Health came on our video in suburban New Jersey, it was, I don't think Teen Spirit by Nirvana had the impact that bomb going off had, where it opened the door for everything. It was just like, I was going to my bass teacher, how do I play with my, he's like, what? And there's no YouTube to show him. Like, what do you mean you want to play with your hand over the neck? It was nuts. It was like a bomb went off in the malls and the school. It was, what was that like when it truly was, right? Like a bomb went off.
It is. Well, the thing is that it seemed like when we did the Dubrow thing, it was a slow build because a lot of the fans after Randy left kind of petered out. I think, you know, that's just how it goes. You get this momentum and you get this following, and then someone leaves a band, and then it's like, well, you know, we tried, you know, we gave it a shot. They didn't get you know, they had 2 Japanese import albums that had come out, but nothing in the USA. And so, you know, I don't know what the reasons were, and I'm not saying that all of them didn't come to see Kevin play, but we were starting from square one because a lot of those clubs didn't have a lot of people.
Yeah.
There are some nights where there was just not that many, and then other nights, you know, a little more crowded. So I was really determined to get the word out, and I was dragging everybody with me to every show I could get. And I would book people in advance because I found out when they were playing. You can look in the paper and you can see 2 shows here, 2 shows there. Then I would start making phone calls. You know, I'd pay my older sister $50 to drive us for gasoline because I had no car in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then I met a friend at a show, and she'd come pick me up from high school, and then we would go down to the club. So, I mean, I set that up so I wouldn't miss a show. And I saw 105 shows of Dubrow.
Whoa. That's a breed. I get it. You're all in. That's why I get you. When I go in something, I go all in. It's a life.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
As a teenager, that's what you do.
Did you happen to make it to the US Festival, or that might have been too much as a teenager? No.
Honestly, I don't want to go too much into it because it's in the book and it's a kind of an interesting story. I attempted to go, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. I love that. I mean,
I attempted last minute.
I mean, Missy, I tell this story just so you know we're on the same page about myself. I was doing bad in school, and Def Leppard and Billy Squier were coming to town in 8th grade. I called a bomb scare into my school because I figured if I didn't get my report card, I would make it to the weekend and be able to go to the concert.
Okay,
so that's why, like, almost the journey of not going. I mean, that's a better story than if I went to the concert. So I look.
Yes, and this one particularly was, and I dedicated a little chapter to it, and it's funny too. Yeah, Kevin tried to actually call me after it happened and said that, you know, they were called on the road to go, and they were literally whisked away to take over a position. I think they moved Joe Walsh. Or
Joe Walsh wanted to play with Stevie. Joe Walsh wanted to play with Stevie Nicks. So that was So
they called him. Yeah. So Kevin tried to get me in. He says, but we were on the plane because I had no way. He was like apologetic, and I'm like, no, don't worry about it. And I never told him what happened. But it's in the book.
Okay. So speaking of the book, let's talk about the book and how this came about. This book, I mean, we're going to put a link where everybody can we're going to pre-order it. We're all going to pre-order it. I'm going to do it today. And let's talk about this book. And the cover alone is mind blowing. And the title, and the title.
Yes. Actually, I had been toying with the idea of doing this book over the last 10 years or so. And maybe even longer than that. And I actually had a little recorder, and I would put little experiences in, and, you know, because I had to figure out what I want to tell and what's kind of mundane. So I was doing that here and there, but as you know, life happens, and then you're, you know, working and commuting, and you just never get around to it. And actually it was this year, earlier in the year, when we were all stuck at home, I thought, this is the perfect time. I can work on this every single day. I don't want to drag this out anymore. And I just made a commitment to myself, and I sat down. And, I've got a little Bose speaker here behind me, and I put on an 80s station and let Cinderella and Quiet Riot and Rat and all this stuff come out. And I'm going through all my memorabilia, and I'm pulling it out of my closets. And I felt like I was going back in time. And it was a lot of fun, except sometimes the videos, when I'd watch some of the videos, I got a little sad. It was really hard because I remember the songs and being up front for so many shows. It was like, oh, I wish those days weren't gone. I had so much fun. My whole life was going to see Dubrow shows and everything. But I put the whole thing together, and I thought, well, you know what? I've got my own photos in there. I've got letters from Kevin in there. I've got ticket stubs, certain things that meant a lot to me, pictures of me and the band at video shoots, and all kinds of things. And I thought, I'll just go ahead and get a really nice book cover. And I'm going to do this on like on a Kindle or something, and just kind of keep it low key. So I'm looking around the internet, and I really was looking for a specific photo of Kevin where he's wearing his little necklace that has a little 3D music stand. You know, his stand's a striped pole. This is a 3D version of it in gold with a little diamond in the tip. And I bought that for him, had it made for him. brought photos down to the jeweler and said, this is what it looks like. And they made it for me. And I gave it to him as a gift right before they performed on the Solid Gold TV show.
Wow.
And he put it on his necklace there, and he wore it a ton. And I thought, I really like to have something that shows that, And I found this photo of Kevin leopard and
It's
leather
a great
and all this.
photo. It's a great photo.
So I said, all right, who did this photo? And I look it up, and it's someone named Mark Weiss. And I had no idea Mark Weiss is like the man when it comes to
Invented
80s
it.
photography.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I'm just like, so I probably a good thing I didn't know. I probably would have been intimidated and I would not have picked up the phone.
Yeah.
But I had wrote him and I said, look, I'd like to that photo. And I asked him about it and told him, what I was doing. And he kept asking me questions by email. And so I just picked up the phone and called him. And I'm on the West Coast. He's on the East Coast. And we talked about it, and he just put his book out.
Amazing
and,
book.
All his, The Decade That Rocked. Yes, fantastic book.
To interrupt real quick, the pic. What I love about Mark and your book is these are pictures that feel familiar. But remember, as a kid, I don't like getting a book where I've seen every picture already. Like yes. I get them. I'm like, I've seen, like, even if it's just a little to the left, maybe the picture before the picture we saw 6 billion times, but I haven't. I feel like I've seen the picture on the cover, but I haven't. That's what really excited me about your book.
That's so true, because what happened was when I told him the photo, it was the one on the internet, but he said, let me send you that photo session of photos that we didn't use. And this came up with Kevin. And I said, that's it. And he's in heaven. It's all beautiful. This is perfect. And Mark said, I'm glad you picked that one. I like that one too. So Mark was on board. And he wanted to be a bigger part of it. And he wanted to partner with me. And he wanted to add more photos. And he said, look, I came in around the Yes Festival. And I took photo shoots for magazine covers. And he said, but Ron Sobel, who I also knew, he did things back right when I first got involved. And maybe we can get Ron to provide photos. And I have photos. And then what you provide, that'll accompany your stories. And I said, Oh, I was kind of like, are you sure you want to do this? I would love to do this. He goes, Kevin was a friend of mine. I love the band. And he said, no one's done anything on Kevin. I said, I agree. Okay. So we said, we're in this and we're going to do it. And I did feel like, Kevin was such a larger than life person. If I tried to do something that was small scale, like I had started, he wouldn't have gone for it. Kevin would want this to be a big deal. And so I feel like he may have orchestrated this meeting Mark.
Yeah. Mark Weiss. I mean, that's the top of the game. I mean, like just wild. I mean, his book is beautiful. His work is beautiful. His work made me move to California. It was 50. Yeah. It pulled me in. You know what I mean? And the
his instinct is great. His instinct is fantastic.
Yeah, and the pictures acquired. I don't know if you talk about this in the book, but you might know their fashion changed. They went from all the leather to this brighter, like Van Halen-esque. I mean, they probably didn't steal it, were mishmash colors. And I love when do you remember what that was about?
I never really questioned their choices. I always just thought whatever they wore was just freaking cool. And I actually had some of my photos on there of Dubrow because, Ron did a lot of photos of Quiet Riot with Randy, but apparently he kind of moved into a lighting position when Dubrow started. And so there's not a lot of photos unless you were a fan of Dubrow. Yeah. I've got a lot of photos, but a lot of people don't. And I have photos of Kevin wearing these, purple pants and black and white striped shirt, or he'll wear an entire red kind of like a stretchy outfit and a scarf. And, it was just our sailor hat. And it's just like all these odd things, but it's not until you brought it up. I just never thought that as being weird. I just thought that's the way
I didn't think it was weird. I just thought it was a morph. It was a morph. But all of a sudden they brought the 7, like when I was a kid, because I saw the Mental Health video, it was very leather, black and white and leather. You know what I mean? Very leather, like post Judas Priest. And then, you know, you saw them on some cable channel. They played the US Festival. I was over Michael Drager's house,
Oh,
and he
yeah.
had the red pants with the
Yeah.
stripes. And I was like, whoa, it was all blown my, because Ozzy's in an Indian outfit. Like, this is nuts. What's going on? You know, you're okay. I like this. Like, because you wanted to emulate them. You're like, I got to change my outfit, get something like that.
Right, exactly. And I did actually have, there was one outfit Kevin had. It was all yellow, and it was like a yellow tux
Yeah.
jacket with the tails. And I actually had one made to wear. I wore things that were similar, or I tried to get something made just like him. And my mom did make a Randy Rhoads black and white polka dotted vest for me and a bow tie. And I wore just that. And there's a picture of me in the book wearing that when I was, you know, white. My eyes are all bugged out, all excited. I had the Farrah Fawcett hairdo, you know.
Yeah. And I think, because I think the reason the outfits hit me, because it also went with the music, because Quiet Riot had so many dimensions. They had the dark run for cover, Mental Health, then the joy, the come on, feel the noise, which reminds me of the bright colors, you know. And I mean, even as a kid, I knew Thunderbird was so sad, and that would make me sad. You know, when he was singing to Randy, like, oh my God, this is huge. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you know, because I mean, I think I've seen things written about it, but Thunderbird was written for Randy for when he went to Ozzy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the last verse was added, and that was what was on the album after he died. So the additional verse wasn't on the demo tapes or anything, because it was more about my friends leaving to another band.
Yeah.
And when he died, he had the last verse, and then the album came out. And so it is definitely was a song that Kevin wrote for Randy.
Wow. And your name is on that album. I mean, as a fan,
Yes.
I mean, how did that feel? I mean, that never leaves that album. That's so cool to me, to have your name on that album.
Well, you know, it's funny. The pressings after my name's on there twice. I'm going to brag here.
Ooh.
One, it says Quiet Riot Squad in care of Missy Whitney, and it has the P.O. box. And then down below, it has special thanks, maybe a handful of people. And I was on there, and I thought that was, you know, first of all, that's the greatest honor ever.
Yeah.
But I remember when Kevin called me, and he says, your name's on the album twice. He was very hyper. You're on there twice. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. He says, you're being thanked right after Ron Sobel, my best friend. You're right up there on the top, because, you know, you're one of the people, and everyone else is, you know, people that work with us, but you're right up there. He was so thrilled to tell me that it was an honor.
Wow.
And it was an honor.
Wow. What do you think the magic was of growing up? It really, when you talked about the moped and the water slide park, it gave me chills along with the band. There's just something I mean, obviously you picked the right band. A lot of people were doing that with a local band. A lot of us I did that with Sound Chaser at the Field Recreation Fair, where they covered Def Leppard and Black Sabbath. And it was just a local band that changed my life. It didn't happen to be Quiet Riot, but it was that same moment that I was experiencing across the country. Yes. You know, I remember the guy had parachute pants, a vest with Sabbath on the back, and it meant so much to me. And you obviously did this at a high level, but what do you think it was about those moments?
You know what? Part of it I have to think is that the 70s and 80s, you know, before everything was YouTube and easy access and everybody can be a star, and now everyone's being pulled in so many different directions. I just don't know whether or not that is always a good thing. I mean, it's great if you find some strange band, you get to hear a lot more that's going on out there, but that attention, trying to find one that can really generate an audience, I just don't think that's around anymore. Now, with Kevin and Dubrow, honestly, the whole time I worked with him before he got the record deal, before the band got the record deal, it never occurred to me that he wouldn't get a deal and he wouldn't be huge. Isn't that interesting? It just never occurred to me. It was just a matter of doing what we needed to do. And I don't always feel that way now when I see bands. I think, oh, this is a great band, or I might see someone who's good, but I think there's just, everything's too diluted now. There's no time for fans to say, okay, you know what? I only have so many hours in my day. Who do I want to pick? And they just all go in. And fans were a lot more motivated back then. They wanted to help out. There's a thing where, again, you like the fan stuff. When they were on the road opening, in between the opening for larger acts, they would often play smaller clubs by themselves on the road. So they were playing a lot, but they would headline tiny clubs and then be opening for the big act, and they'd go all around the United States. And I was talking with different fans by letter, And I started probably one of the first street teams,
Oh, cool.
saying on the monthly newsletter. I'd tell them where the band was going to play. I would tell them where they are in the charts. I would, inform everybody on this monthly newsletter. And I said, look, I've got a lot of fans who want to help. They keep saying, how can I help? How can I help spread the word? And so I took it to heart. I said, send me your name and your phone number and your address, and we will talk. And this one thing in particular, Quiet Riot played a tiny club, as Kevin called it, out in Bumfuck. And there was this one young fan who was going to go to the show. And I sent her a stack by mail, a stack of Quiet Riot membership forms. And she brought them to this tiny club, and she put them all over the tables. And Kevin and the band got there, and here they are out in the roads, still building their following. And Kevin saw Missy Whitney, Quiet Riot Squad, sign up today, blah, 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 blah. And he called me, said, how in the world did you get these flyers out here in Bumfuck?
That's awesome, man.
I said, your fans love you. Don't underestimate the fans.
And we do. And that voice, come on. I mean, that voice, no wonder you believe there's just a magical voice in songs. So good. And you are donating part of the proceeds to Frank. What will you explain?
Yes. I always kind of feel like anytime you do any large endeavor, there should be some sort of a giving component to it. I feel that way about no matter what I do. And this particular thing here, in the amount we're trying to raise, we wanted to add a portion that would be designated just to go to Pancreatic Cancer Cure Foundation. Before Frankie announced he had pancreatic cancer, and of course he lived a lot longer than they said that he would. My brother had just died of it prior November.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we told us, and he literally told us, and 2 months later he was gone.
Yeah, it's a fierce. I've experienced someone that's a very fierce. There's just yeah.
And my brother, man, big guy, powerful guy, took him out. And then months go by, and then Frankie announces it. I'm like, oh, here we go, So it's got a special place in my heart already for a cure or for some early detection. Yeah. And I thought, it would be really nice if not only did all the fans, come together and we get this book out and talk about the fan side of this band, but we would take a percentage and we would issue a payment, and I would write a letter on behalf of Quiet Riot fans in Frankie Benelli's memory. This donation is for you, and it would be given in that manner. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing, writing that letter and sending that money.
That's so awesome, and I love that. And I saw them. It feels like I saw them last year, but it was 2 years ago at the Whiskey, and Frankie stopped the show for this moment for his bandmates that got Kevin and I believe Randy too. He had a moment in the show that was beautiful that he talked about. It was really cool. And wow, that's awesome that you're doing that. And speaking of now, that's so heavy, you're like that is, but to the joy.
I know.
But he left so much joy. They don't leave us because the voice is still there. The drums that come on, feel the noise. I mean, both Kevin and Frankie so prevalent. You know what I mean? In the sound of that band, not hidden in the mix. Either of them. No,
and they're there with us. And you mentioned the name of the book. Keep On Rollin'. And I have had people say, I'm just curious, where did you get that name? And I said, well, actually Keep On Rollin' was a Dubrow song. And one of the many that Kevin wrote, and a lot of them made him on the future first several albums. But the Keep On Rollin', when he had written a letter, he said, I wrote an all new out rocker called Keep On Rollin'. So he was going to play it at one of the shows. And when I first heard it, that was it. There has not been a song since then that I love more than Keep On Rollin'. Now, fast forward, Kevin ended up changing the name of that song and rewriting the lyrics to Party All Night.
Love that jam.
Everyone knows Party All Night, but it is the Keep On Rollin' was the original name and the original lyrics, and I still have the demo. In fact, I have, even though it's pretty garbled because it's from a 40-year-old demo tape, I will put that on and I listen to it all the time on my computer, and I just sing right along as if it's a brand new song. And I said, just curious, why did you change your name? He said, you know what? The theme of the album and the songs we were picking for the album, I wanted to keep on rolling to make it. He said, but it needed to be adjusted to fit the theme of the album. So
And the theme of his
that's why
clothes,
it
his
was
clothes.
changed. The whole thing. Yeah,
The
the
brighter,
craziness.
brighter, yes,
Right.
brighter.
And so that's why it ended up being changed. But I've got the original.
That's awesome. Well, I thank you for keeping it, keep on rolling. You know, I mean,
It's
it's so cool. It's, and you know, it's funny. I think of that. Remember when we were kids that keep on trucking, keep on, you know,
yes.
I feel like Quiet Riot, what really moves me so much about them, because 70s music is just so deep. The Zeppelins, the UFOs, it's so meaty, but 80s music is so cool. And so, it's so what we needed is, and I feel like he bridged those two. He had one foot in the 70s and one foot in the 80s, truly. And that was what
Oh,
was so
definitely.
cool.
And Steve Marriott was his favorite singer.
Yeah, you could see there's one foot in
Mhm.
each, and the greats, the GNRs, the Quiet Riots, they usually have a foot in both, and it's really cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and I can't wait to get my book. I can't wait to get my book, Missy.
Yes, and you know what? We're gonna probably, we're trying to get it. The campaign ends the end of this month. We're trying to get as many people to go in there. But I have to tell you, our plan is to keep on rolling. And so if I need to, or if we need to, Mark and I'll make a second campaign and just keep on rolling part 2. We're gonna get it and get the funds, and we're gonna get this thing done because it's too much a piece of history not to have out there. So
100%.
more people will go out there and do it. We're just gonna get like 100 more books sold, pre-orders, and we are on our way to press because the book is done.
We're gonna get a chunk of them today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Britt.
All right, and hang out after I'm gonna press stop record now, but I want to say goodbye to you again.
Okay.